Rippaverse. I also do a comic for Ninja High School and Tomorrow Girl. And established in 1985. We just celebrated our 40th anniversary a year ago. So welcome.
Awesome. I'm Timothy Lim, the creator and artist of Kamen America. She's the mascot of Bell County Comic Con, who is also hosted by our company, Iconic Comics. I've been working on comics not nearly that long. It's probably about 8 years. I started in merchandising and doing variant covers, and we kind of just fell into it by accident. But it's been quite the ride, and I'm just one of the Iconic Comics team members who are here.
Hello everybody, I'm Eric July, I'm the founder and owner of Rippaverse Publishing. We started in 2022 and I actually started my publishing journey in music, being part of a couple of Billboard charting bands, and just wanted to give it a shot. I've been a comic book lifer, and I know we'll talk about it here in a bit, but out of stubbornness I decided to do my own thing, and here we are. It's been quite the journey, it's been a blessing. As well, and met some awesome people along the way.
All right, and so you're based out of?
Dallas, Texas.
Dallas, Texas.
Based out of right here between Belton and Temple.
Okay.
San Antonio.
All right, so start with the basics here. You don't have to go to LA or NYC to publish a comic. All right, awesome. All right, so y'all are all publishers, so let's start with a real basic question here. Why did you choose to publish as opposed to going through one of the big 2 or 3, like Image, Dark Horse, Marvel, DC? Why did you choose to be a publisher yourself as opposed to going to approach those guys? Let's start with you.
Part of it was, at least back in the day, it was understood that you would have to go through like those pipelines to make yourself successful. And what we found out was just as with like Uber, Lyft, Airbnbs and stuff like that, we have this parallel economy or gig economy where you don't have to go through those pipelines anymore. And especially if there's any type of disenfranchisement with what's happening in the mainstream, a lot of times you can just do it by yourself. It does take a little bit of work and research, but if you're willing to put in the elbow grease and find out the logistics of things such as printing, fulfillment, distribution, and whatnot, any person can do it themselves, and you don't even have to do it our way. We each did it 3 separate different ways, and we still converged, and we're able to do it kind of in our own way. Yet still, if you look at our business models, there's a lot of things that we had in overlap with each other.
Yeah, I'm in total agreement there. But yeah, for me, like I said earlier, a lot of it was stubbornness. Just having done what I'd done in music for all of those years, and I started doing some research. I pretty much reached out to everybody that I could, more so just to pick everybody's brains to figure out kind of what made sense. And what I found is that just because they have a book that has been published by a major publisher does not mean they understand a lick about actually publishing anything. And so a lot of the information was useful, some of it was not at all. So what I just did, for me, I'm always asking questions. So when I wanted to put out our first book, I'm asking all these questions, and I'm like, okay, I see everybody's doing things, and this is the standard, but why is that the standard? And often people couldn't answer it. It's just the way we've been doing things. It's the pipeline that everybody has to go through. And because things are far more decentralized, it's more easy to, I guess, connect with a different audience. You can do it yourself. It does take a lot of work. I tell everybody all the time, since becoming successful, I'm still working. I'm actually working harder than I ever have in my entire life. So it does require work. It does require a lot of research, but absolutely it can be done, and it is a fulfilling journey, and even therapeutic in its way when you see kind of everything start to come into fruition, and that story and those characters are resonating with other people.
Well, I guess it's because I just didn't want to get a regular job. So I tried getting into Marvel and DC. That was tough back then. It was the late 70s, early 80s. They had very strict standards to pick anybody. So the beauty of it was that back then the direct market had just opened up. So that was an ability for anybody who really wanted to. How many of you know what the direct market is? Yeah, basically direct market is when you sell to comic stores directly. You know, so we took that route. I took the advantage of the new distributors and decided to start publishing on my own because now you can be done. You didn't have to come to Marvel or DC anymore. If you had an idea and you had the money, you could do it. And if it sold really well, you can sustain it. But like Eric and Tim said, it's work. It's a lot of work. If you want to make a success of it, then you have to be willing to put in the hours, and the sweat, and the tears. I mean, it is really something you have to be passionate about in order to sustain it. You know, so and you can't just do one book and be. I mean, you can do one book and be satisfied with that and say, hey, I got my comic book done now. But if you want to make it a business, then you have to put in the work. Really, you do.
All right, so let's say someone comes to you or you have a great idea. As a publisher, what are the steps to go from, okay, here's my idea, to here is a book that we can put on a shelf and sell? So let's, you're Kamen America. So where did that go, or like what are the steps that go from idea to physical book?
So again, a lot of it is boring because of the logistics that are involved in it. We're fortunate because I do everything as far as the book is concerned. So from the art to the lettering to a lot of the digital pre-press, I handle by myself. In traditional comics, that's not necessarily the case. You'll have someone that you pay for the pencils, someone you pay for the inking, someone you pay for the lettering. Because I worked in merchandise for 10 years, I'm completely self-taught, so I had to do a lot of that by myself, which is good because it saves the cost, because you learn how to do it on your own. So let's say you're a person out there and you're an artist or a writer, and you're trying to think pretty conservatively. You might have to hire your counterpart. You might have to hire an artist, you might have to hire a writer. The next part is deciding how and where do you want to put your book out. I would have to say that in terms of just independent publishing, let's say you didn't even want to go fully independent. You can go through Amazon. Amazon is very, very straightforward. You can post your book up there, get sales through Amazon sales. The only problem with it is Amazon takes a really big cut. Moving up from there, let's say you're a little bit greedier, a little bit more ambitious, and you don't want to do that. You can say, you know what, I'm going to do this completely in-house. Okay? You can go to your local printer, or you can find one online, and you can self-print. Now the question is, where are you going to store these books? You're going to store them in your garage? Great, you can do that. You have to ship them. So shipping is all done by yourself. We always say, all three of us, that with success comes scale, and with that scale, you have these exponential costs that go with it. So all three of us had to go with this. You become successful. Your book takes off, whether it's Antarctic Press, Iconic, or Rippaverse. Great. Garage ain't gonna cut it anymore. You gotta upgrade. Storage space. You rent a little public storage space like a U-Haul or something like that. Pay a little bit more per month. Awesome. You become more successful. That's no longer gonna cut it. You gotta upgrade to a warehouse. So the good thing about being independent is everything is scalable based on your success. But everything boils down to knowing in the nitty-gritty each line item that you have to take into consideration in order to do it. If you're just an author by yourself, an author or an artist, and you just want to put the book out there, you literally just have to go to a Kinko's or any print shop and do it, or find someone online that's an online printer that's going to do it for you. That's the easy part. If you're just trying to sell to one person, two people, or do it by yourself as a vanity project. It's as you grow where things become more difficult.
I mean, he absolutely nails it. I'll just give you guys a personal experience. You know, when I started the Rippaverse, I was okay with selling a few hundred books. You know, I paid out myself. I saved up probably, and I'm not telling you guys to do this. In fact, I probably advise against it. I saved up to almost $300,000 of my own money before I launched this project. And it was something I was very passionate about. But I would have been okay because I'm understanding that this was going to need to scale up with selling a few hundred or whatever books because I have somewhere to go. Well, you know, we went from, and Brandon's back there, he can speak to this, we went from needing to account for maybe a few hundred, maybe a few thousand books to, well, now we've sold over 50,000 books. This warehouse that's 1,500 square feet ain't going to do nothing for us. So we had to scale up immediately, and it's so much. I mean, you're talking everything's up for negotiation, like that out of box or like you walk up to UPS or USPS, you see the price up there for how to ship. All that stuff's negotiable when you start to get up at that scale, and so you're negotiating shipping rates. You're negotiating how much you're going to pay with your printing, because you're promising them volume. So it's just so much that comes with that. But to answer the question directly, at least for me, I wanted to make a business out of it like from day one. It wasn't just a vanity project for me. It was something that I was passionate about, but I also understood that, look, I can't buy I can't eat retweets. I can't pay the mortgage with retweets and people saying, oh, that's a cool thing. I needed to actually find a way to sell it. So we were targeting our audiences and looking, what is the story going to appeal to? Who is the target demographic? Learning all about that. I think so much as creatives, you get caught up in just the creative element of it, and that's just, hey, I have a cool idea, a cool character, I get the artwork done, and then that's it. Like really, as Tim kind of alluded to, it's really, that's the easy part. It's really once you start to scale up when things start to get very, 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 very difficult. So do your research. There's more information out there than it ever has. I'm not trying to plug my own thing, but I actually have a book that's available everywhere called How to Build a Creative Business, where I go through pretty much all of this, because it's just so much that, and it's one of those kind of fields where you don't know what you don't know, and you kind of have to experience it, and you are going to fail. There's going to be some things you try, and you're going to be like, oh, that didn't work. But the benefit of being independent is that you can pivot. You can imagine being for some multi-billion-dollar corporation, and they get something wrong. The reason why they often double down is because they're a mammoth, and they're trying to steer that, and that's incredibly difficult with all the red tape. So that's the benefit of being independent.
Well, these two gentlemen here are revolutionaries, okay? They are the example of the new paradigm that are in the comics industry. When we first started, okay, it was very simple. You sent in your information to the local or the national distributor. They put in their catalog, they sent it to the comic stores. That model doesn't work anymore. Diamond is defunct, okay? It's gone. Okay, it was a monopoly. It stuns me that a monopoly went out of business. Okay, it should not have gone out of business because it controlled the entire industry. These gentlemen proved that you didn't need that anymore. Okay, they are the new example of creators who have gone direct to consumer, okay, and sold their product that way, based on the strength of their product. Okay, they have people out there who love what they're doing and are willing to give them money so that they can produce it. So that is the new dynamic that we're experiencing right now. And that is how it's going to be in the future. Comic stores, while I love comic stores, are slowly starting to fade. Okay, they're becoming like hobby stores used to be. They're changing. They're no longer as important, as they used to be. So we as publishers have to change, our business model in order for us to survive. And these gentlemen here, perfect example of, changing to the new environment.
So here's the question: since y'all are all publishers, how does digital publishing compare to traditional print publishing as far as how much business you do in that? Is it more digital or is it more print? What are the pros and cons of those?
This is really fascinating. I'm actually glad that you brought up that question, because it's a discussion that all three of us have had. And it's one of those subjects that tends to be contentious amongst a lot of artists and publishers. But because we're coming from the outside, like we're not in traditional publishing, we're able to kind of think about it in a level-headed way. So all of us had this discussion where it's like, avoid digital because the piracy rate is high. If you put your book out digitally, all someone has to do is copy it and put it on the web, and it's out. People have it for free. But then I noticed something, and what I noticed was this. I'm guilty of it. There's a book I see online. I'm like, I'm going to check this out. I check it, and the little angel on my shoulder says, this book is good. You should just buy it. And I was like, I think I'll do that. And so I would go to Amazon or wherever, and then I would purchase it. And so over time, the conventional wisdom from a lot of professional creators who went independent was avoid digital. Don't do digital, they're gonna pirate it. And I said, we're gonna test that. We're gonna put it out digitally too. So we put out the digital option. And sure enough, within about 3 months, our books were popping up on bootleg websites. But we also saw a spike in our legit digital sales through Amazon. And so we determined that when people read our work and it was good, we don't have any fear of putting out digitally because most people who read it and have the money to do so will purchase the book and they won't put it up as like a freebie. Now, there are people who are going to read your book and say, you know, whatever, I read it for free and I didn't like it. That's fine. But we took that risk and we said, you know what? For every campaign that we do, that was easily around $8,000 extra that we got just through digital sales that we wouldn't have already. And I know that Mr. July and I, we were actually talking about that because he said, how did you do it digital? Like, I want to know. And I said, well, I'll just be honest with you. I don't know what the success rate is going to be depending on your book and how you decide to do it. But, you know, it might be worth giving it a shot. But I know he's a new adopter of the digital model, so I'm sure he'll have some numbers and some fun facts to share with you too.
This was a great question, and this is a true story. Like, we recently did our first kind of run of some of our initial books, and we just released them digital. And we went even further, in which they could just get it directly from our website, and they could download it immediately. To download it immediately, and it was obviously free to do whatever they wanted to with it after that. And before we had launched, I spoke to Tim, picking his brain about it because I know they had dabbed in it. And, you know, it was a very humbling thing because we saw, especially with our international customers, many of them started to, you know, obviously purchase that. Many were first-time buyers. Like, that was the first time that email I'd ever seen that popped up for us. So we got a lot of new buyers that were just buying from us digitally. The thing that is interesting about it is that depending on, I guess, where they are from, it seems that what they value, either digital or physical or even both, it varies. So it's not like this one size kind of fits all kind of situation. So, you know, a lot of our, like, you know, South Korean, Japanese fans, they got the digital work, right? And they prefer it. And if you look at the trends that are happening over there, well, it's starting to trend towards almost, not exclusively digital, but digital dominates their market right now. Whereas to maybe in the West, at least in the North American market, it's a little different. Where the physical copies is what people prefer. So we have a kind of a theme, rather a slogan, and we always say it's meet people where they're at. And so what I mean by that is that you have to understand that not every reader is identical. All cultures are different. Subcultures are different. And so it's about how you package that. And so we're always trying to find creative ways to package it to obviously convince the buyer, because ultimately that's what we need. We need sales. But if you can package it in a way for them to understand and play around with that, especially with the format, you tend to you tend to be more successful. So it's just not a one-size-fits-all. But so when we put out the digital, it was a very humbling experience because I was looking at it like, dang, were we this whole entire time missing out on all of these international sales because up until this point we didn't have them available. So it was very humbling.
The other thing I would add to it from a creator point of view is you can save on costs by doing it too, because that suddenly cuts out your shipping and that cuts out your storage. It's just a pure sale. People give you money and the transaction has it so they can download it immediately. So I would say, especially for young creators or people looking to get their feet wet, it's a great option because you can host it on Gumroad, you can put it on Amazon, you can put it on Kindle, and any person who's interested can buy it right away, and you don't have to deal with the overhead costs. So I want to make sure to bring that up as far as like the creator side, that can be very beneficial for new creators who are kind of antsy about getting into physical print media.
Yeah, I agree with these guys 100%. We live in a digital world. Can't deny it. You know, it's one of those things that, I wish it didn't happen, but it is here, so it's reality. When we were doing books, it was all physical. I like to think that there's still people out there who live like a physical, tactile experience with their comic, and we're there to provide. And the beauty of it is now that there's printers can print on demand. You can print one copy. You can print 100,000 copies. You know, it just depends on what you can capable of. I mean, we've sort of accepted digital as just part and course, you know, of doing business. If someone's going to pirate your book, they're going to pirate your book. How best can you? We look at it sort of like, well, if they pirate our book, it's kind of like promotion. If they're willing to spend the time to pirate your book, there must be something about it they want to read or enjoy. The problem is monetizing. Okay, the thing about it costs us money to produce the comic that you want to read and enjoy, and if we're not making any money on it, it's very difficult for us to continue to produce material that you enjoy. So, if you can, to avoid piracy just on a moral level, yes, you should support the people that you really like. But at the same time, I know I can't stop you from doing it. Okay, so the only thing I can do is just, ask not to do it. And hopefully, you won't.
So this question kind of goes along with this. Do you price your physical books versus your digital books differently? Because I know I've seen some publishers that the digital stuff is half the cost. I've seen some publishers where if it's $4.95 on the shelf, it's $4.95 for the digital file. So what is y'all's take on that?
We do price ours differently, so our digital cost is actually lower than our physical cost. And it's kind of a weird math. I think the way that we figured it is if we had to think hypothetically based on our first amount of sales, how many would we have to sell and at what cost to generate to make it worth our while to have posted? In other words, could the sale of digital have at least covered, let's say, my rate per page that I would normally have? And that's typically how we price it. Now, I have seen some people where sometimes it's equal because I think the quality of the work is so good that the artist thinks that the digital is at the same value as the physical. And I think that's one of those instances where it is kind of like a market deciding and telling you for the next time how much you should price your book. But that's one of the things that, again, we're just kind of doing it in the way that we've done it for the last 10 volumes because that's how we've always done it. I'm pretty sure out there there's a much better and more finesse algorithm that has a much better way of scaling that price, but that's typically how at least we do it with our books at Iconic.
Yeah, I think it really depends on what your intention is. When we did our Rippaverse digital stuff, yes, they were priced lower than what the mainline books were. But again, I do everything with Rippaverse with intention, not just at random, right? So after I was doing the market research, I'm like, okay, we're putting these out, we're trying to test the market obviously as well, but what is our actual intention? And so I'm looking at it from that perspective, and it's like, I'm putting this out, especially for new readers, and therefore it has to be lower than its physical counterpart because they want to get a sweet deal because they're dabbing their toes into this universe, right? It's the first time that they've heard anything about it. So if they're getting it at a lower price, they feel a lot more inclined to actually buy into it. So I think that when it comes to pricing, not just with digital, when it comes to pricing with anything, I think you need to first kind of conceptualize what your actual goal is and then build a plan from there. What I despise about really any industry is this whole standardized pricing thing. I think pricing should always be dynamic because not everybody's trying to accomplish the same thing. Not everybody's trying to sell the same thing. I remember we used to put out our books and we were very transparent about our process. So when people would say, hey, I could go pay $5 for this comic book that's produced by the Big Two. Well, our books, our paper quality, our stock is 2 grades higher than what they print. We use different card stock for our covers. It's not a floppy, right? It's our floor is 56 pages, right? And so I'm not going to price our books just because somebody else is doing it that way and they're playing by a completely different set of rules. This is one of the things that I've seen absolutely ruin young entrepreneurs or young people that are trying to publish, is that they're looking to what a multi-billion-dollar corporation is doing and saying, I'm trying to replicate that. That's a quick way to go bankrupt. That's a very quick way to just lose everything that you got because you don't have access to those rates that they're the volume. You don't have access to. You can't really use your material as a loss leader like many of them can. So if they lose $100,000 on a project, it's like whatever. We just had a hit movie. We can pull resources from there. We're gonna be fine. You can't do that. So no matter whether it's digital, physical, or anything, my advice to anybody out there that's trying to publish is find out what your actual intent is and be reasonable and price based upon that.
Well, we do price ours digital lower only because there's no cost of printing, shipping, things like that. I mean, it still costs money to first produce the material, you know, but our reasoning is that if we price it low enough, hopefully we'll get more people's eyeballs on it, and they'll like it. Enough people will like it to want to buy the physical version of it. You know, so I mean, it's one of those things where we're trying to balance the two, you know, and we actually prefer digital because we don't have to deal with shipping and printing, but at the same time, we love physical because we just like to hold it in our hands, you know what I mean?
All right, so I know Antarctic Press, you've done some Kickstarters. I believe, have you all done Kickstarter? And have you done Kickstarter? You have not, okay. So, in that case, this will kind of go for all three of y'all still, though. What makes a project say, for my publishing company, this is a good fit, and I think this is going to be a project that's going to sell? So what is kind of the criteria that you're like, this is what, we're going to go ahead and move forward on this, as far as just publishing either physical or digital, and then we can move to the Kickstarter question just a little bit. This is going to work for us.
Oh, I'm going to try and compress this so I don't get overly wordy. So the thing that the three of us have in common is, for example, Antarctic Press started out in traditional publishing and then became later on adopters of a Kickstarter model. We went directly into a Kickstarter model. The one thing that we did differently, there was a couple things. One was we originally were advertising ourselves not as a crowdfunder, but as like a pre-sale campaign. And the one thing that we did differently was all our books were already done, 100% finished before we launched. And then we would go on Kickstarter. And then Mr. July, he went one step further by going, same thing, all of our books are finished, but we're not going to go through any middleman. No Kickstarter. We're all going to host it on the website. Everything is a pre-sale. There's no campaign. So between the three of us, kind of similar model in terms of kind of like this pre-sales format, but the way we differentiated ourselves was in our presentation. So what we did was, whenever you're doing a crowdfund, there are a lot of similarities, and people try to copy each other's homework as far as like, oh, I see this selling, I'm going to try and copy what they do. You can try that, but the moment you start blending into a market, you're losing. So one thing that I learned when I was teaching marketing as part of a college course on medical professions was the point of reference was, they said, it's like salmon, it's like fish swimming in a direction. The moment you blend into the market, you're not doing marketing correctly. You have to swim away. That's how all marketing works. Think about how many commercials you see every day. And in your brain, it's all just fog. You don't remember most of it, but you remember the funny ones, or you remember the commercials that stick out. Which is why typically, when people look at Super Bowl commercials, they're typically all bangers. And it's because people are paying top dollar to some of the greatest minds in advertising to say, how do I stick out from the marketing? So the one thing that we did when we did Kickstarter, not only were our books at the lowest price, so we offered $10 hardcover books, which we were told was insane. They were like, that's crazy. Why would you offer a hardcover book for $10 when we're offering our books for $25 and they're 20 pages? And I was like, because I feel that when people see that it's a 48-page book that's hardcover at $10, that's like, we can't beat this price. Like, it's worth a shot because these people are pricing their books at such a low price and giving a pristine version of it. Why don't we go with that? The other thing that we did was at the time that we launched Kamen America, it was around 2019, 2020, and at that time, there actually hadn't been like a major American superhero outside of Captain America, and we were like, I think it's time. There was just something telling us, like, I think that the character is marketable. And to kind of test the waters, we put out on social media, it's like, here's something we're working on. And the feedback was so intense that we were like, I don't know, we might have something here. The funny thing is that we actually didn't think that Kamen America was going to be a breakout character. We just thought it would be like a one and done. And so we were kind of shocked ourselves at how good the reception was. So it's always good if you're thinking about doing crowdfunding. Don't just try and do your homework to try and blend into the market. Ask yourself, what's the thing that's going to differentiate yourself? Because that's the thing that's going to help you stand apart. You might get that one issue that sells good, but if there's nothing in there to help it stick, and you go to like issue 2, don't be shocked if you see like the sales numbers start to dip because people aren't returning for it. So I would say like crowdfunding is great. We use it like 100%. I mean, like it is definitely our bread and butter as far as that's concerned. But I would say do your homework and ask yourself what you can do a little bit different so that you stand apart.
Put that absolutely perfectly. For us, now the first book that we put out was ISO #1. I'd written it, obviously Cliff Richards was a industry veteran, and he did all the artwork. And I from the get-go was launching a universe, so I wasn't so worried about trying to capture the widest net with him. I just wanted to make a character that was new, fresh, but familiar. Like that's why he has a more simplified kind of suit and whatnot. Because I knew there were going to be opportunities to create other characters that could appeal to different markets. And so now we're at this point to where we have, I couldn't tell you the amount of characters that we have, different genres, horror, and everything else. But we do still a lot of market research for the different like types of stories that we're going to tell, especially now, because we're more so in the trade market now, not just the direct market, because our books typically are bigger. So the more graphic novel format, even though there may be single issue, they're more graphic novel format, but they're definitely with our new deal with the shit, it's a trade publishing. Now, those are different things. If I'm losing you guys, there's a direct market, which specifically is a specialty market that handles the North American comic book industry. So Canada, some of Mexico, and obviously the U.S. But then there's a greater trade market, which is more all-encompassing and pretty much where novels, graphic novels, and all those books float in. And those are two completely different markets.
So just for clarification,
yes.
If I'm getting the trade, my trade might be coming from Amazon, Barnes & Noble,
correct,
traditional booksellers or retailers, whereas if I'm getting quote-unquote the new issue, I would be going through a traditional comic store or through you directly.
Well, for us, you can always get everything that we produce at Rippaverse.com. That being said, we have what we call a retailer copy for every single book that we do, and those are in the Barnes & Nobles, the Amazons, and everybody, and you can get those wherever. So again, that's what I'm talking about meeting people where they're at. But because our books, it never was that ripe for the direct market anyway, just because, again, we weren't releasing floppies for the most part. It was always bigger books. But we do always identify our audience before we come up with a book. So before I greenlight every single book that we put out, I usually have the last say. I'll turn down my own book sometimes. I'll do a whole thing, and I'm like, yeah, this ain't gonna work, man. We're gonna have to shove it. I can tell you the amount of stories that we got shelved because that's just how I have to think. I have to look at the market, see where it's at, and like, can I find an audience for that? But the cool thing about it, and I learned this in music, is that you never get married to a story because, so like what Tim said, you get those breakouts. The Horseman is one of our most popular characters now. That was the idea that Joe and Chuck came to me and they said, hey, we want to do this kind of badass character, no powers. I was like, all right, cool, we'll do it. Let's see what happens. Now he's rivaling some of our, like the main Trinity characters. And you never know. And you learn that in music as well, because you may do, let's say you do 15 songs and you're only going to do 12. Your favorite song might not even make the album, right? And it was something that I learned there, that you have to be kind of, you have to have that humility, and you have to be humble about yourself. But I always write for an audience. I say that all the time. Like, I won't put anything else out there if I don't think that there's somebody that is at least into it.
Real quick, one thing that Mr. July did that was actually kind of unique at the time that he was on the scene was it had been almost a decade since a company came out with a fully fleshed out universe. And I think what happened was, I think, in my mind, as far as like the comics world is concerned, Valiant Comics, when they kind of like relaunched themselves and rebranded, it was like all these titles coming out at once, and it was new and exciting. But after a while, as things peter out and the market starts to kind of correct itself, years had gone by, and part of his advertising was, it's not just ISO, it's the Rippaverse. And so people, especially collectors, who want to know that you're invested for the long haul, they saw that he already had basically like this whole concept of multiple books at once. So it wasn't just like the one and done and the kind of like one train at a time. It was like a whole spread. And I remember like when I was doing my homework, I was like, dang, he's launching everything at once. I mean, you want to talk about the metaphor of like firing on all cylinders. I mean, that's what he did.
Well, the two biggest problems for small publishers is exposure and distribution. Okay, these two have figured out their own distribution, and they figured out their own exposure. And so that is a great testament to the ability to adapt to changing environments. Now, we take sort of a different approach. We look at crowdfunding, at least I do, as sort of like the premiere, the first time you're going to see it, be on board, at the ground level. And then we reprint Tim Lin's Kamen America through Antartic Press, to get into comic book stores. So that's the second tier, sort of like the second tier of distribution. And then after that, then you can do trades, you can do other. So there's a lot of ways to take the same material and monetize it on many levels. Let's say, for instance, Eric wants to get, his books into comic book stores. I don't know if that's what he wants to do, but if he decided he wanted to take all his material he's done a lot, and turned it into floppies. I mean, he's already done the material, he's already paid for it, so basically he would just be exposing a new audience through comic book stores if you wanted to do that. So that's available to him, if he decided to take that route. And so, to me, the most important thing is to actually produce the product, and if you put it out there, Kickstarter is sort of like the Wild West, and then you put it out there, and see what it takes. People like it, go fund it. If they don't like it, you may try again, or learn from the failure.
Mr. Dunn, this is a specific question for you. So, I supported the Kickstarter for Your Hunter from the Future. Now, how did you choose that's the one we're going to kickstart? So what type of research did you do? They're like, hey, this is the one we're going to put up? Or was it, hey, we have everything complete, we're going to try it out? Or what was your decision-making process?
Well, we had the material. We figured that would be the best way to fund it quickly, because if you go through traditional route, it takes months before you see a penny, okay? Because you got to offer it to a distributor. Comic book stores have to order it, then they send in the order, and then distributor has to send in the order, and you have to print the book, and you ship the book, and it can take months before you see a print. Kickstarter is a very easy and quick way to raise funds for a project. If it fails, then you don't lose anything other than your investment into the project. If it succeeds, then you've paid for it and you're getting income in, and that's really what you want out of it.
What was y'all's biggest surprise or shock that you've had as a publisher? Biggest surprise or shock? This could be good or bad. So what was the thing that was like, as a publisher, this is the thing that's like, wow. And you've had to kind of step back and say, I didn't see this one coming, or this is better than I thought it was going to be.
I would say success, just because someone that did the math for us, they said that on Kickstarter, only about 0.2% of creators break the six-figure mark. And for Kamen America, we did that within under 2.5 years. And we had tried previous books before then, but there was just something about it that clicked. And so some people say, what's the recipe? What's the secret? I don't know what to tell you. It's luck. A lot of it is just luck. Right place, right time. And so any type of blessing that we get is always a surprise to us. Most people who have been coming to the show for years know that Kamen America is the mascot for Bell County Comic Con. but she's also the mascot of the Japan Comic Art Expo in Tokyo, which is a triannual show. And I remember when that offer came, I was like, what? that's insane. Like, that's completely crazy that we have that opportunity. So I would say, like, on a plus side, that's definitely a shock, or else we wouldn't be here today. None of us would. Mr. Ben Dunn, like, it's funny, I always think, whenever I think of Ben Dunn, I think of that scene in Back to the Future where Marty McFly is like riffing on a guitar like Johnny B. Good, and everyone is like staring at him like, what was that? And he was like, you don't know it now, but trust me, your kids are gonna love it. So it's this idea that right now you might not know your importance until way down the line. And most people don't notice, but Ben Dunn in Japan, he's known as the father of American manga because he started it. Like, if you like anime and manga, it's because Antarctic Press like they blazed the trail essentially for it to be cool and popular. And so that's one of those things where, like, I remember like a few years ago we were tweeting that Ben Dunn was going to be on our show, and they're like, oh, Ben Dunn, father of American comics, American manga. And I was like, I had no idea that was his nickname, and everyone just knew who he was. And so with any type of endeavor that you do, I would just say any mediocre, any modicum of success is shocking, and it's still shocking to us any time we see it. Just in the few hours that we've been here at the show, people have come up to us and been like, I drove from Ohio, here's all the books I got from you, and that's always like, it's a good feeling. Bad stuff, honestly, it's in one ear out the other. Like, there are a couple of instances where you have to deal with some people, but it's a pittance compared to a lot of the blessings that we've had.
Yeah, I'd have to double down on that the success, it's just a success. Like, being in this position and doing things the way that we did is just, I never anticipated that. I never anticipated that we would sell that well. I never anticipated that this would be something that I could, you know, again, coming from music, that I would be doing professionally now. Like, this is my thing. I wake up every day and I make books, I'm editing, I'm doing something pertaining to, the comics, right? Just for the sake of conversation, though, because again, I couldn't follow up with that. I agree 100% with everything that Tim just said. That's the big one. That's the number one. But I will say that one of the harsh realities that you're going to have to deal with if you see any sort of, definitely if you see like breakout success, is that you'll find that the American industries they can be catty sometimes, right? Not everybody's rooting for you, and you got to be prepared for that and understand how to deal with it. Obviously, like with Tim, it's kind of whatever. I'm gonna do what I gotta do either way. But I think for some people, because they want that adoration, they want to be adored and loved, and maybe this is something that they're really passionate about, and that can throw them off when they see that, wow, I thought that these people would have been rooting for me because I'm doing this really, really cool thing. Many will, and your customers are the ones which you're paying attention to. But you also understand a lot of envy out there. It's an entertainment industry. It doesn't matter. Deal with that in music, right? I remember backwards my band coming out and we did the things the way that we did. And you have well, why don't they have a solo in this song? Or I'm way better guitarist than these guys. It's like, okay, go make that, man. Go make that music that you want to make. The same thing I encourage people with comic books. Go be the change that you want to be, rather than trying to force and levy that upon everybody else. So it's just something that you have to be prepared to navigate, and don't dwell on it is one of those big things. It's easy to get distracted. Unproductive people are like leeches, man. They will try to bring you down to their unproductivity, right? So you need to be out there, going out there, being great and doing your thing, but just be prepared for it. It ain't all sunshine and rainbows all the time, especially if you're a breakout success.
All right, Mr. Dunn, biggest success, and then we are going to take a few questions from the audience because we're almost out of time. So, biggest surprise success that you've had as a publisher?
Gosh, what haven't I experienced in the last 40 some odd years? I mean, I probably would say the biggest, to me, the highlight was getting that Netflix deal for Warrior Nun. Unfortunately, I sold the character off before that, so I didn't actually benefit financially from it, but I was able to get at least some screen credit, so there's that. And of course, just the fact that we're still around is, to me, a shock, to be honest. Because the mortality rate for small independent comic book publishers is pretty high. So we're very pleased and happy that we were able to maintain our ability to resist, the going out of business. And we're happy that there are enough readers and fans out there to keep us afloat.
And I think I saw just the last couple days, you had a book. I think Antarctic Press had a book on the hot list from cover. I think it was Tomorrow Girl.
Oh, Axicamp? Yeah.
I think it's a couple different books I've seen like have been popping up in the regular feed on stuff.
Yeah, I mean, the guy who did it is really nice. We came up to, he's a local guy, so we always like local guys. So we're very pleased with that.
Awesome. All right, we got time for probably about 3 questions. So 1, 2, and 3. So real quick.
All right, thank you, gentlemen. So for distribution, or when you guys publish something, there are people on social media and YouTube and stuff like that have large audiences. We call them influencers, and they impact greatly when a new product comes out. So where do you guys stand with these influencers, and how much attention do you guys pay to them?
Mr. July's an influencer himself. I'm gonna let him take this question.
Yeah, obviously there's a lot of benefit from that, but you have to be careful. It's intricate because just because you have a following does not mean you can convince someone to buy something, right? So, and I think of many of the bigger companies that have invested so much time into these like influencers or money and sunk it, I think they expect that there's like going to be a high conversion rate, and that really depends on a bunch of different factors, right? So I've seen people that have way bigger followings than I have don't sell anything to the degree that we do. I've also seen people that have almost no social media presence, but somehow when they put something out, it's just an absolute banger and it does gangbusters. So it's balanced. Sure, it helps. You want to interact with people. You want to introduce your stuff to their fans. That's the whole point of the whole influence culture. That being said, it's tricky. And you're not one viral tweet or one viral cover away from your product just blowing up. It just doesn't work like that. Is that audience right for your product? And sometimes they're not. So you get people that think, oh man, this guy finally covered my thing, it's gonna blow up, and then it doesn't really convert. So I've seen it happen both ways.
All right, next question.
So I got pretty decent theoretical.
Closer.
Alright, no. This goes up. So, this is for any of y'all. Piracy, we all know, is bad. But, let's say a Kickstarter happens and you're the author of the Kickstarter. Do you think piracy is a decent tool to use? Like, leak it yourself, only part of it, and use the piracy to see if it would boost the Kickstarter.
I myself don't condone piracy. I would never put my own book out there, but I know creators who have, and they do it because they basically beat the pirates to the punch, thinking if you could read my book, you're gonna love it and you're gonna enjoy it. So I can't say yes or no. I can say for me personally, I would never do it on my own. However, I have seen other creators do it, and if it works for them, great. It's just personally, that's just not something I would do.
All right, last question here.
All right, just a real simple question about business and scale. Tell me, how do you guys build your team as you scale up?
Okay, so I guess we each have individual answers to this one. When I think of how we assembled our team, it was like Ocean's 11. I pretty much picked people who were outside the industry. Almost every single person that I've hired for Kamen America worked outside. The people that I hired that worked inside, I won't name names, but there were a lot of them that did not work out. It was a one and done. They just did things that were very unprofessional. A lot of them couldn't make deadlines. That was a big one for me. It's just because I come from the medical field. The deadline is everything. If you tell me, if I'm gonna pay you $500 and you tell me you're gonna get it done by Monday, and I don't see anything until Wednesday, and I hear a sob story about, oh, my cat was sick, and that's your only apology, that doesn't cut it. And so we've had to cut some of those people out. A lot of people ask, why do we hire so many people from Japan? I have never had a late entry from Japan. Not one. Not in the 6 years we've been doing it has a single Japanese artist been late. They are fantastic to work with. Whereas I'll have some people say, hey, I'll do a cover for you for $1,500. And I'm like, you were late the last 2 times I hired you. And there's a Japanese artist who's dying to get work done. And he'll do it at like half the price. And he's going to do it on time. So everything that we do, you can ask anyone at Iconic, I'm like, they're pretty much hand-picked. I spend a lot of time combing through portfolios, and I will observe an artist for months and see, are there any complaints? Is anyone saying that they're unprofessional? I know that Eric, because he's dealt with a much, much larger crew, he's had the pain of having to deal with people that he's had to rely on, and they just fall. They fall through, whether that be like a printer, an artist, a writer, a letterer. Like there are just pitfalls you're gonna make. So a lot of people give us some flack, thinking that we're like a clubhouse, we're really insular. But I feel like we're insular for good reason, and it's because, like I said, Ocean's 11, everyone is handpicked, and I can point to each one of these gentlemen and say, that's why I hired him. I can tell you exactly why. We actually have a new cosplayer. We're introducing her this morning, and she said, who's that? And I said, that's Matt Weldon, the human printer. And she's like, what does that mean? I said, he's a human printer. He doesn't pencil. You can put a piece of paper in front of him, and he'll take a gel pen, and he'll just start drawing without even like having to think about it, because he can project from his brain onto the page. I was like, that's Ocean's 11 type stuff right there. Like that's a 1 in a million guy that you can get, and we got it. And so I can point to each of these people and say, here are his strengths. This is why we have him. This is why he's on this team. But most importantly, they have to be able to work together as a cohesive unit and be reliable.
Yeah, I first reached out to people that were in close proximity to me. And then obviously as we scaled up, had to reach out to people that, knew what they, not just people that knew what they were doing, but to just deadlines and everything to me. Because definitely now with us being worldwide distributed through a shed, it's like I'm telling retailers all over the world that this book is going to come out and it's going to be on sale at this time. If anybody gets behind on that, it's not just them, and stuff happens, but it's not just you I have to communicate with. It's with the entire world where I got to say we got to push something back. So reliable people, I will hire someone reliable that knows what they're doing over a big name or anything any day of the week.
All right, let's finish with Mr. Dunn here.
I agree with these guys, man. I tell you, I'm a firm believer in the bullpen method, where we just get people together and ideas. I mean, we're a small company, so we basically are creator focused. So we just look and accept whatever individual creators send us, and if we like it, we publish it. If we don't, say better luck next time.
All right, so if you will please give these gentlemen a round of applause. And for our last thing, if you will just tell everyone where you're located, so if they have more questions, they want to come check out your product, where are you located at in this?
We're just right down this road. Just check it out.
All right, Antartic Press.
We're in Hall A, right next to the merch booth.
Yep, and we're right down over here, big Rippaverse booth.
All right, thank you once again for coming out today.